What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Says podcast. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams, and I am joined by my two usual co-hosts here. We've got Kyle Henning on my left. Kyle, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing well. Good, let's see, today is Thursday, so when you'll hear this, it'll be Friday. But good Thursday, getting turned into the weekend, gonna be doing some work, but still gonna be a good weekend regardless. Not looking for the part where it's supposed to rain again for the next couple days,
because I was, oh my goodness,
gonna try to do yard work, and now that's kind of going out the window, but we'll see how the rain goes. So other than that, it's doing well, doing well. Chiefs time.
I would really like some rain.
Training camp's close.
Yeah. Training camp is very close. And also on the bottom of the screen, of course, Arrowhead Tom. Tom, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing pretty good. I was doing better, and then Kyle started talking about his yard, and I just kind of disassociated for a minute. We're not that old, Kyle. We're not there yet.
I'm not old. I'm not old.
You got your New Balances on and those jorts?
I do not wear New Balances, nor do I know. Jorts don't fit, and I don't wear New Balance.
You need New Balance, Kyle. I'm just telling
you. I'm good,
hey,
man.
I'll leave the New Balances to Kirk Cousins, okay?
We just spent we'll talk about that, but we just spent a ton of time in the pre-show talking more about things we talked about last week. In case you didn't catch that episode, or for some reason you're jumping back in and this is the first one you've heard in a while, make sure you go back and listen to last week's episode. Just kind of talking about the future. Yeah, lots of news and stuff.
Lots of Kingdom Says news, not much of anything else news, but lots of Kingdom Says news,
which is really the only news you need to know.
That is the important news right there.
Important. We had a good conversation.
Yeah.
Still working on the Discord, still working on all that stuff. So, exciting time. Kind of that hurry up and wait phase. But that's what we're in the off season, anyways, right? We're waiting for football. We're waiting for things to launch. It's gonna be a good year.
We are in a waiting stage right now, and there is some news on the Chiefs front here.
Well, finally. Chiefs adjacent.
Yeah. There's some pretty relatively Chiefs stuff in the news.
Yeah.
I mean, just last night, actually, if we just diving right into it, the ESPYs, ESPN's ESPYs were held, and
this is very Chiefs related.
Yeah, the Chiefs clean sweep the Emmys with
3 for 3.
Patrick Mahomes winning Best NFL Player of the Year, also Best Male Sports Athlete of the Year, and then the Chiefs as a whole winning the Best Team of the Year, going 3 for 3 on the night. Absolutely great. It was a great night. We saw a couple notable Chiefs on the stage, given some shout outs.
You saw the notable Chiefs on the stage.
There was one very notable one. Yeah,
all of them were on the 15, 87, 95. All
Derek
on
Dieter
stage.
made the
Pacheco, of course.
He was entourage. Pat's allowed his entourage when he goes places.
Let me
that is not saying anything about why Garrett was on the roster for while he was on the roster. Garrett is a very competent football player. He's fine. That's not the same thing. But when we're talking about going to the ESPYs, Pat gets an entourage. So
we're gonna pivot. This isn't even on our agenda today, but we're gonna ask it. So I was reading through some comments. I think it was on Reddit. And
oh Lord, oh dear God.
I know. How dare we mention something else in the world? But somebody said there was a discussion on this past season for Patrick Mahomes, and the person, and this is not a Chiefs fan who made this point, he said, we just saw one of the best seasons a quarterback has ever had. Like when you put it in context of the whole, like start to finish, postseason run and everything, and we just we
did this.
Like, we're happy that we won the Super Bowl, but I'm thinking about it, right? Like, because you think about like the great quarterback seasons, right? And you think about like some of the years that John Elway had, who didn't win a Super Bowl, right? You think about 07 Brady, almost perfect season, but didn't win the Super Bowl. Pat won MVP.
He put up statistical numbers that
number one
seed. Never see
all the stats were accomplished.
Let me ask this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you guys agree with the statement that this past season from Patrick Mahomes was the best season any quarterback has ever had in NFL history?
That's so hard because you're talking eras and things. It's definitely up there.
Yeah, Mark Gunnels on Twitter actually put together like a whole list of all the things that I accomplished this season, just to really really make it clear here. Most total yards ever in a season, like ever, 5,570 yards. Passing yards leader, passing touchdowns leader, NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, first team All Pro, Pro Bowl, and then ESPY's best NFL player and ESPY's best male athlete. So I mean, that's a lot of accomplishments right
maybe
there.
Somebody who's listening or whatever, tweet it at us. I can't think of any individual player walking away, not just with the individual accomplishments, but also, I mean, you tack on Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. Maybe Joe Montana had a season like that somewhere, but to lead the league and like yards and touchdowns and everything else, like, whoo, lad.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got to be in the conversation. I mean, he set multiple records.
And at the same time, it kind of just felt like another year for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. Is it really felt like a very normal, average league. I mean, we really and we don't even really kind of realize how crazy it was. But like, there was multiple games that he dropped 40 points. Like week 1 dropped 40 some points versus the 49ers. He dropped 40 points and it just felt so casual.
The number 1 defense, 49ers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and you don't even realize like by the end of the year, he has the most total yards ever in a season by any player. Like 5,570 yards. That's crazy to think about, and it was just such an average seeming year. There was ups and downs, and then they got hot real late and made the big playoff run. I mean, it is really, we always talk about taking things for granted and taking this Chiefs team and Patrick Mahomes for granted, but like, if you really look back at it, I mean, it might even be too recent to look back and really have an unbiased opinion about it, but if you look at the numbers, if you look at the stats, like, it's got to be up there as one of the top seasons of all time.
I would be curious if there's anybody, again, maybe there's somebody in the comments who, like, point me to a more accomplished season.
Yeah, I mean,
by one player.
That's the thing. We might be missing some 80s, like you said, Joe Montana. You might have had a John Elway in there or something.
And I would say even individual player. I mean, you want to bring like Walter Payton in and talk about, like
what he did front to back is there. The only thing, and it's gonna sound stupid, is I don't think he would tell you that was his best year, which I know sounds like loony bins. Overall, I think it was his best year he's ever played. I don't think it was his best statistical season, obviously, because he didn't do his 50 whatever touchdowns and 50,000 yards or whatever it was. At this point, though, I think the thing that's so interesting about the point you're making and this season being in that conversation, and yet most of everyone just kind of did, I mean, that's what he did with it, is a little insane. I think that's the part that's most interesting is we just kind of, and I guess it's been talked about a lot by some people. Seth Kaiser does a really good job of talking about let's not get numb to what we're watching with his greatness and what we're seeing, because it's easy to when the standard and the bar is as high as he set it just become, it feels normal. And because we talked about the Kingdom Cast's throw bracket from last year.
Yeah,
you go back and you go from last season. These throws are from last season.
Not all time.
Not all time. Go back and look at that group, and you're like, first of all, I don't remember 6 of these even happening. Second of all, these are ridiculous. But in the moment, you're just like, yeah, no, that's what he does. And as a matter of fact, he tells you in the Netflix documentary Quarterback, which we're going to talk about, I just do those things. I'm like that. I do this.
Yeah.
Like he.
Well, that's the thing too, especially what you were talking about. Where you're talking about, Kyle, like, Pat would even say this is probably his best season. Like, I think really we kind of underappreciate it. It's because like we see how much more that could have been. Like how potentially great this season could have been.
I wanted to say something along the lines of his interceptions, and like he's like the documentary. It's such a good documentary.
Like
you get to see so much behind where he's like,
interception at the
what?
End of the game.
And just stupid. Like that was just, if I could just stop throwing the stupid interceptions, this would be a lot more fun.
So it's like he could have had a way crazier season than he did. That's the whole thing. Like he still lost to the Colts in a random game.
Just the random Colts
just like a random like
lost.
throws a game-losing interception versus the
Hey,
Bills.
but every time we lose to the Colts randomly, we win the Super Bowl. So we should put them on the schedule every year just for that.
I also would like rivalry. The other part is Patrick is the guy who exercises the demon dumb stuff that we have, and I would like him to exercise that demon next. That's the next demon I would like to have go away. This is the Colts being any kind of
we're just waiting for the Colts to be relevant, and then we'll meet them in the playoffs, and then
God,
we will.
I don't know, Tom. I don't know if
exercise some demons.
I don't know if we can wait that long because no offense to Indy, but I don't know the next time they're going to say the word playoffs.
I don't know how soon that's going to be. I think we're being.
Do me a favor. Name their starting quarterback.
Anthony Richardson. Come on,
Anthony Richardson.
We're all picking the
Listen, they just got to make it to the wild card round and beat up like Jacksonville or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Got Patrick Mahomes' skill set.
Great, that's fantastic. What else do they have besides Jonathan Taylor?
DeForest
who the Chiefs could have had if they didn't draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but we're not
already.
Darius Leonard. Michael.
So they don't have any other weapons besides a running back.
Michael Pittman.
They have that one guy who got suspended forever for gambling.
Right
two guys. Two of their young secondary.
They still have
secondary.
Who will never play another down in the NFL because they decided to gamble on their games.
Oh my God, guys! Common sense, fellas.
Jack Doyle. I will say that I think we're being a little pretentious about this whole situation.
Mo
I will take a random Colts loss in week 3 to win the Super Bowl any day.
That's fine.
I will.
I just would like it to go away, especially because it's also happened, as Tom mentioned, in the playoffs before. So I would like it to just not be a thing
like
anymore.
one or two times, yeah.
Listen, I will admit that the
he exercises
body bag.
I just want him to put them all away.
To the Colts, Andrew Luck, that comeback, one of the most
frustrating viewing experiences ever.
But I was so angry. I was there. I was like, and I was watching it with Colts fans, and I had to keep it together. And then I got to my car, and I was like, I'm gonna murder a hobo tonight.
I was in a very, very small bar with some friends and a bunch of Colts fans. One of the most frustrating viewing experiences I've ever had, ever.
Yeah, to put a bow on.
Thankfully, the fans I were with were gracious and were my friends. But
that's something, because that was that was a tough night. To put a bow on the whole Mahomes' greatest season ever conversation, I think it's too soon to say. Only because I think
he's also gonna get better.
I think that's exactly. I think we're gonna see something even better. So it's like let's not crown this yet before we see what else is next. Like maybe we would in hindsight, but I think there's still a lot of room to go up from there. So other big takeaway from the ESPYs from last night was like we mentioned earlier, one man was on the stage giving a part of the speech. That man would be Chris Jones, which is great to see him actually with the Chiefs. I believe he wasn't at the ring ceremony.
He was sick.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this stuff because we weren't here. Look, he
went to the White House visit, so that was something, right?
He went to the White House. Yeah. He did not come to go to the ring ceremony. He was sick.
You know he's gonna be real sick because
he didn't show up to a party, guys.
Right.
He doesn't have a lot of. They don't have a lot of leverage anymore. He's not gonna show up to minicamp. He's not gonna show up to OTAs because that's some of the only leverage that they do have.
A new contract, right?
It's all they got. Because in training camp now with the new CBA, they can be fined for every day that they miss of the holdout.
Yeah.
So it becomes up to a point where it's not beneficial for him to sit out because he's losing and costing himself money every day. It's just stupid. So,
but I think the news,
he's there. So then he shows up to the ESPYs because he's not sick anymore. He was at the Chiefs facility like 2 weeks ago on Instagram or Snap or something. Like
I think that's stadium.
He's been around the building. He's been around the team. I know it's the off season and I know we get bored. We've got to stop this nonsense.
I don't know. I heard we were going to trade him for.
Oh my God! Because all right, I know you guys have to talk for 4 hours a day. But my God, I know there's 4 hours of radio to fill a day. Mother of Lord, stop!
Whatever
is a dog.
Whatever a terrorist marshal is, we were going to trade him for that.
transitioning from that, there was some big NFL news that dropped today that very much relates to Chris Jones and his entire contract situation, as the Jets signed defensive lineman Quinnen Williams to a 4-year, $96 million deal, making him now the second highest paid defensive tackle behind Aaron Donald. And that was basically the last hurdle to kind of cross, the last domino to fall for Chris Jones, basically, because out of all, there was like 5 defensive tackles this year, I think,
Jeffrey Simmons
got new contracts.
The main
and
two,
Chris Jones was the most deserving of them all, basically.
Yeah, the main two besides Chris were Jeffrey Simmons and Quinnen, and now they're both done. And we knew Quinnen was the last piece because everybody else got their deal done.
And now it's going to be real simple. You go, okay, you see that? Yep, you give Chris more. So sorry, Quinnen, you're the second highest paid defensive tackle for a little bit.
Tomorrow, I would say. Like, just because of how this works, we recorded this episode tonight. So tomorrow around lunchtime, we're going to put this out in the morning. And tomorrow around lunchtime, they're going to tell everybody that Chris is signed. And we're going to be talking to you somewhere again tomorrow about this.
It always happens like that.
Listen, I've been watching, Katie Hamlin?
Katie Camlin. Yep.
Listen to me trying to give somebody a shout out and not knowing their actual name. Been watching the Twitter feed, the thread feed. Trying to see where that news is going to break. But
we got to monitor the liquor stores.
Yeah, I've been on it round the clock. I've been to every liquor store in the Kansas City
every
area.
Liquor store every 5 minutes. Yeah.
I got insiders now at each location.
We need to get someone posted up at each location around town. Yeah. So yeah, that should be some very, very good news on the horizon. I'll expect Chris Jones to be signed at least by within a week, if not tomorrow when we drop this thing, which is great for a couple reasons. Obviously, you have a cornerstone piece locked up for the next probably 4 years, and you also free some cap space for whatever.
Yeah. Anybody know what Chris's cap hit this year is?
19, 18 million. It's
20.
It's pretty
I think
steep.
It's 20 something. Honestly, I think it's in the 20s.
Yeah,
so it's like $23 million or something.
Frees up a lot of cap space.
It frees up cap space, and it makes you not have to deal with franchise tag conversations and stupid stuff next year, and it gives the player security, and he's earned it.
I think, and here's my spicy take, and I know some of our dear friends really, really have been wanting DeAndre Hopkins in red and gold. And the expectation is Chris Jones is going to sign that contract, and maybe some other deals are going to get done. There's been some whispers that L'Jarius Sneed may have a deal that's waiting to be done. There's some other players on this team that need contracts. I will say this. From the Brett Veach standpoint, right, you decide, right, this is one of those things where he's been able to replace some pretty talented players through the draft, and you've got some guys now who are coming off those rookie deals. Do you throw some money at DeAndre Hopkins, or do you try to pay a guy like Nick Bolton a little bit early and you secure an essential piece of your defense, right? And you secure him before he has he's coming off a pretty good year. Mind you, had he had that one fumble counted and he returned that, could have been Super Bowl MVP.
And I would have won a lot of money. I'll tell you what, I would have won a lot of money.
Yeah, unfortunately. No, I'm just saying,
it was a fumble.
What's more valuable to you, DeAndre Hopkins for 1 year or Nick Bolton for 4, right? And I'm not saying you have to choose one or the other, but you can get out ahead of some of those deals, or Creed Humphrey, or again.
Yeah, it is a valid concern. I think D-Hop is still kind of a pipe dream for a lot of fans, and I think they're kind of trying to connect the dots a little soon. But it's a valid team building strategy, I feel like.
I'm more to the point with the D-Hop thing than I was like earlier when he was taking visits and there was stuff going on. I was like, okay, this is probably they're using our name for drive up value, this, that, and the other thing. Okay, great. Then he goes to those visits, he leaves those visits, he doesn't have a deal, and nothing is said about anybody other than those two teams for like a month. You don't hear our name at all until Fowler comes up with his report that was the Chiefs have stayed talking to him. Oh, that's the first time we've heard our name about him in a month plus. So either there's two things. Either the agent's trying to drive value again with bringing us back up, or traditionally when a guy goes on a visit and he goes to a place, he signs a deal like that.
Mhm.
If you're going to go take a visit at this point to places, you've decided that you're ready to sign something, you think, and you're going to go see those places. He takes 2 visits, New England and Tennessee, and leaves both places with no paperwork.
Very
now we're a
peculiar.
month later,
Very
basically,
peculiar.
and they've stayed in contact, and of course he stayed in contact. It's called due diligence. That's Brett Veach doing his job, regardless. I'm not saying there was anything crazy about Fowler's report. I'm saying that's what he's supposed to do. The thing for me is when you extend Chris, we're talking about legitimately freeing up most likely this year between 14 and 15 million dollars probably on the way they structure deals most of the time now.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you freeing up $15 million in July to not use it? And here's the other part. I think they're going to use some in-house because you have to pay in-house guys. Tom is right there. I think the guy's already been decided because it's the guy that's next due up in-house, and it's L'Jarius Sneed. And I know there's some folks that think Sneed's on the trade block, and I understand the concept. He's not going anywhere. Spags loves that guy too much. He's the piece that they use. I said we talked about this last year when he was Tyron's kind of replacement on. Reed played more traditional positional safety. They used Brian Cook in a traditional safety. They used all of their Juan in a traditional safety role. They moved L'Jarius around and let him do the Tyron rover role thing. He's not leaving. They're not paying Justin Reed Tyron money for a reason. He's not Tyron. They didn't bring him in to be Tyron. They drafted Tyron. Replacement. He's not Tyron, but they drafted his replacement, and that's what L'Jarius is going to be. That's why he was a safety hybrid corner from college. He played both, mostly played safety for a while, and like they know what they wanted in the kid, and now he's developed into it, and he's the best slot blitzing player in the league at this point. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that. I think Brian Baldinger said it, not so I feel pretty comfortable in saying that.
He's pretty good. Ball player.
So I think they're to the point where they know they've got to pay some of their in-house talent because that's you pay certain guys. You pay guys when they're going into their prime. You let them go a year early, but you pay them when they're still in their prime or when they're going into their prime, and then when they're key portions of your program. And Chris Jones is clearly, without question. And L'Jarius Sneed is. He's the back end of that defense. I know Nick Bolton gets a lot of credit for the middle linebacker stuff, and he does a great job with what they ask him to do, but he's asked to do a very specific thing. L'Jarius is that moving utility piece that they like to use. They have to have one in Spags' defense. They have to have one.
Yeah, I would say the other thing about the D-Hop, speculation is that I don't think the Chiefs are going to pay him something like the Ravens did with Odell, Like that's just not the Chiefs' move.
No.
Like they will give, and that's just up to D-Hop.
Unless it's a couple of years, and it won't be quite still what Odell's making.
Right. Yeah, but that's really it would come down to D-Hop actually deciding, which feel like is rare nowadays, to actually decide to take less to be with a contender. I mean, we all say it makes sense on paper.
No,
and then we never see these athletes actually do that.
Well, yeah, they don't because they're smart. Their careers are this big.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, they are. You should
get
have
as much money as
window.
Possible. Yes, you have a finite window to make at that profession, at the thing you're best at in the world. You have like 12 years for most people. If you have a great career, it's 12 years. Great career.
I will say DeAndre Hopkins though is one of the few guys in the league that has a lot of extra stuff out off the field that he can really profit
and I think
make
part
that
of,
up from.
But I also think that Kansas City also understands that if they do the Chris Jones deal and they do a couple of one or two of these in-house deals, they have room to go get a piece, a weapon, and they can pick what side of the ball. Well, how many weapons, game-changing pieces are left on the market right now?
One big one, one very big one.
Emphasis on the term right now. Right. We see this almost. I mean, not every year, but frequently. Right. It wasn't too long ago that Tyrann Mathieu, before he came to Kansas City, was a free agent late in the or early in the preseason time period. Right.
Yep.
And so there's that
and
too.
Even and later into the season with Terrell Suggs and with other things
you may want. You look like maybe a guy like Zadarius Smith. gets cut, or he actually might be a free agent, but like maybe there's a guy out there who is kind of one of those surprise like cap casualties. That's not a surprise for some of these NFL teams. I mean, we're talking about we're living in a world where Dalvin Cook, I think he's still
available.
Still wandering around, right? And so there's some pieces out there, and I think
has Zeke found a home yet?
No, this is where it's important to remember that like Brett Veach isn't the youngest GM in the league anymore. At one point he was. I think his first year he was the youngest by a couple of years. But he's got a little bit of savvy to him. He's learned some lessons the hard way, and I expect him.
He's also wearing 2 pieces of hardware around his fingers. So.
Yeah, and I expect when you have that pull, like it's hey, you want to come play for us, and there's an evaluation there, and I think he's going to stick to that, right? If they say, hey,
they have a number,
we'll give you a 1 year, $8 million with up to 16 whatever and incentives, and D-Hop's like, no, I want I want the Odell deal. Well,
okay.
Sorry, D-Hop, you're gonna have to go catch passes from Malik Willis.
1 year, $8 million, right?
Yeah, I was just throwing numbers out.
Right. So, but just threw that out, just random. Okay, 1 year, $8 million. Do they have the ability to sign him to a 1 year, $8 million contract as it currently sits?
No.
Oh, so what would they need to have happen to then be able to sign him to that 1 year, $8 million contract if he said yes when they presented him with that option?
Chris Jones extension.
Huh. Okay. So
or they release Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, there's that option too. Which actually, no, they would break their salary cap if they did that. So
yeah,
that's how that works.
Yeah.
No, it would break. It would break the no comment.
Yeah,
and also, anyway, so yeah, there's pieces to it. I see both sides. It's kind of a wait and see game, but I also think that I think the moves that you're going to see happen first will be internal before there's any external. Is more, I think, the point for me on that.
Yeah,
I still think DeAndre Hopkins is very much an option if DeAndre Hopkins has decided to play for a number to go after a ring. That's basically what it boils down to. He can go to New England or Tennessee and they'll pay him whatever it is that they're going to pay him.
Yeah.
He obviously hasn't decided that those are supremely important options to him yet because he hasn't signed paperwork in either place.
Yeah, probably just waiting for that final offer to come through. With
you want to see where all the dominoes fall.
If you really weigh the effect of a 1 year, $8 million or a 1 year, $13
and again,
million as far
completely
as
making up numbers here.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But it's just like how much
what's
money
it worth
at this point
to
in his
you?
Career. Yeah, to be on a winning team.
Not even that. And who would you like to catch passes from?
Yeah.
No offense to Mac Jones or Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis, whoever.
No, they drafted Will Levis, so there's that too.
Yeah, so like I said, Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Like, what do we?
Well, Malik Willis probably won't even make the roster in Tennessee.
It's insane to me, also. But hey, whatever.
Which I say that flippantly. Malik Willis is by all accounts a good kid, and I don't.
This isn't a Malik Willis.
Will Levis is the kid that was eating bananas with the peel on and like mayonnaise out of the jar, right?
Mayonnaise, and his coffee.
Yeah, that.
There's a reason why he fell to the second round.
Insane human that I want to hang out.
Clearly a psychopath. That man has bodies buried in his backyard.
Okay. So to put a cap on this whole Chris Jones situation. We expect Chris Jones to get signed within very soon, and then we'll go from
It'll be done before camp, which is
some internal candidates, maybe a couple cool external candidates. Who knows? But like we all know, Brett Veach, he's not going to reach for a guy. He's not going to overspend on a big guy because honestly, we have one of the better developmental teams in the league. Obviously,
they won a Super Bowl with
10 rookies. Yeah.
And like the second or third most minutes played by rookies on the whole season. Fairly certain. Because it's like it was like them, the Texans and the Lions or something like it was two horrible teams.
Something like that, yeah.
And them.
Yep. So we have the great equalizer, which is Patrick Mahomes.
We do. Speaking of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, yeah. The Netflix has a new documentary, as you've kind of referenced a couple times here, called Quarterback, that follows Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota throughout this last season, giving a real in-depth, behind-the-scenes look of what it is to be a quarterback, what the highs, the lows, the grind, the workouts, the treatment, the heart-crushing stuff. It's
It's an insanely good documentary.
If you haven't seen it yet, we're not going to spoil too much because we really, we don't want to get too in depth with it. But it is a really good 8-part series. There's 8 episodes to it. This is the first season. I'm guessing they're going to do another one next season. But
it's 8 parts, and it gets predominantly more Mahomes as we go.
It's pretty much a Mahomes.
Yeah,
it's pretty much a Mahomes documentary.
The other 2 quarterbacks.
Oh, the last two episodes are, I think, are essentially exclusively Patrick.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk Cousins has some good inside access there throughout it.
He's there for a little bit. He's there through all of it.
Marcus Mariota kind of disappeared for a little while, kind of on the back burners.
It's not Marcus's fault. I also
it's tough when you have a season like that.
Well,
just look at Marcus Mariota's season, and you can kind of guess how his documentary part would go.
I thought the interesting part for him was him going to do something and take care of something that for himself and the betterment of his career and whatnot, and the team not expecting him to do that, and somehow feeling like they got jaded where if the roles were reversed, they'd cut him the next morning in 5 seconds if they needed to. Like that
the
part is
side of the NFL
right.
Is brutal, yes.
Oh, the business side is, but the part to me that is mind-boggling to me is when the teams act as if the players somehow like they're the ones that aren't thinking of it as a business. The teams act like it's like, are you guys nuts? Like you guys know how you built the system that you operate, and yet they're supposed to be just crazy loyal. Like you would come on now.
Yeah, it's a real good inside.
It's a good documentary
to really just the life of an NFL quarterback. And as like I said, Patrick Mahomes is. It really felt like Netflix was like, let's make a Patrick Mahomes documentary, and I guess we'll feature some other quarterbacks.
Look, man,
guest starring Kirk Cousins.
I won't even do that though, because Kurt. Look, Marcus was in the documentary. Okay.
Yeah.
Kurt was a part of it with Patrick. To be honest, there was an actual content to the Kurt thing. Like Mariota's story was so hard because of what that season was. Like Garrett said, like it just sucked. There was good insight into it, and like watching him go, there were pieces of it you were just like, that's got to be tough to have a film crew following you around during that process. Also, like Jesus. So there's that, and then I left that documentary going, I like Kurt, and I really didn't want to when I started. I will also say though, he is exactly like the stereotypical Midwestern dad, so it's perfect that he plays football in Minnesota.
Talks about his lawn.
Minnesotan, I mean, he is.
Oh, dude,
for that team.
Dude, I cannot wait. For those of you don't know, Tom hasn't seen it yet. Garrett and I both watched the whole thing. Tom has not seen it yet. When you watch this, Tom, you're gonna be like, oh, I know like 8 of those dudes in my neighborhood. Like that guy.
It's just my neighbor 10.
Yeah, no, and the only reason I haven't watched it is because
Netflix is ridiculous.
That you not only have to restrict access, but you're also going to charge more. So, speaking of access and charging, I just want to remind you guys that we do have a Discord that will be launching soon. It's free. It's going to be free to join. Yep. We will have an opportunity for you to support us financially. But
there will be premium content for different levels.
Yeah, we're not going to be like Netflix and be dirty.
Yeah, no. Like that. And also, once we give you a price for something, that'll be it.
That price. We ain't going.
It's not really going to. It's not going to be some spastic
change.
$15. If you guys do support us financially, like, rate, review the podcast, subscribe to the Discord once we launch it, all that stuff. Maybe I will be able to afford Netflix and watch this documentary. Yeah, so please do those things and help me get Tom Netflix. Hashtag
start the trend. Tom needs Netflix.
Get it going on Threads.
So. Oh, Threads, good point. That's nice. Yeah, follow us on Threads if you're not on Threads. We're on Threads there too. We're going to be trying to get some more content to go out over there. We're trying to figure out what that platform is exactly, like, everyone else on Earth.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Are we going to do the OnlyFans? Was that
was
that ambitious for me?
I mean,
that's fine. Listen, I've got some other ideas for my channel.
We can have those conversations elsewhere.
We'll put a pin in it.
I said there was going to be premium Discord content, which, I mean, I guess if you want to go that route, if you get some private personal fans, you want to, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, I think the thing for me with the documentary is what it did for Mahomes and for the Mahomes family.
Yeah.
First of all,
system.
Patrick is the athlete that I think a lot of people will identify with, of like, oh, he's just one of us, except really insanely good at everything he touches. Like that, there are certain things where you're like, oh yeah, he's not human. And then the rest of the documentary, you spend your time going, yeah, he and I, we could sit down in a room and it would be like we would have so much in common, and it'd be real easy to do. Because genuinely throughout the whole documentary, I was sitting there going, I have had that conversation. Oh, I've had that conversation. I've had that conversation with my wife, and I'm sitting there watching. And that was the person I think that's going to benefit most from this documentary is Brittany, because you got to see what she does, what she is, and how he views her and how he thinks about it, which is, by the way, for all of you idiots out there, that's the part that matters.
That's the significant
you
part,
lunatics.
How she supports him. She supports him a lot.
Jesus. Literally in the documentary, and I don't know, they did a GQ couples quiz that I found on YouTube earlier too. There's like this back and forth where they quiz each other about each other. She organizes his day. She keeps him on track. Like he's just like the rest, most of us. Like we're not very organized. We just take care of what's in front of us. We go do what we need to do. We're here and here, and we get everything done and all that. Is she drives the boat so that the wheels stay on the track, and oh, by the way, the two kids still get fed and stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and the other part that I think is the most interesting for all the people that talk all the nonsense that they talk is the how they met portion and how their relationship started portion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say or spoil it, but you guys can find the clip.
It's real good.
It explains a lot about why a lot of folks have issues with them and why they're perfectly okay with not caring about that at all. So my recommendation to our fan base and whatnot is, instead of trying to burn everyone to the ground when they come out and say that stupid nonsense, at this point, follow the lead of your quarterback and ignore them, mute them, block them, just completely disregard them all entirely, because it's not worth the time.
Exactly.
He hears it all. He sees it all. They make that very clear in the documentary. Keep talking about me.
Yeah.
Keep saying my name.
Definitely go check that out if you haven't already. It's a real good in-depth look at
Bobby has a real good strong Bobby does some
Bobby
good things for himself in there too.
You will learn a lot about Bobby Stroop if you don't know about him, and he's
kind of
great.
Important.
Yeah, he is significant. So, with that being said, we've got a little bit left. We got a little bit left to talk about here. We got training camp obviously starting.
Should we do the other thing first before training camp? And
we'll We'll do the other thing that was
the other news, nonsensical.
And we really don't want to spend too much time on this topic.
This will be brief
because this is some stupid stuff.
Yeah, unless we end up on a rant. Which, I mean, how often do we do that?
Oh, never.
Us never. Kadarius Toney was in a very good mood, you could say.
He's been in a good mood since they won the Super Bowl.
He's been in a very good mood. Yeah, he has been delivering some receipts to folks, and folks have been delivering stuff back, and then you get delivered stuff back.
He's been delivering receipts, and then I've heard a lot of people crying about their responses, or responses to someone else entirely that have nothing to do with them, and that person being fine with the response that they got.
So for all these, I'll just lay it out. Basically, the Kadarius Toney has been talking trash to the Giants fans and the state of New York.
He's had enough.
He has had enough
and that's not entirely fair, because it's a lot of these people, these individuals who would like to
attacking him. Basically, there has been a riot. Like, what we
are messaging him, are it's like this is behavior that if it wasn't to a professional athlete, you'd probably.
The word you're looking for is entrapment and harassment.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, and I'll just say it this way, like, it's weird how we just feel
normalize
we can treat professional athletes I'll just say this: if somebody were in my DMs every day, personally insulting me, at some point I just dude, knock it off, or I'll block you, or, but then then they make burner accounts. It's like, listen, yes, you can make the argument it's easy, just block out the noise, all that stuff. I mean, sure, just get rid of your social media, but at the same time, they're humans.
Why do they have to do that to be able to live a life? Leave?
How about and it's the same. It's why and I'm not, victim is a strong word here, because
they do it to college kids. They do it to high school students.
Yeah.
They're just looking for a reaction.
If you're that person,
they're looking
if
for
you're
a
that person
to
in
go viral
in somebody's DMs, like harassing a public figure of any type, here's what I want you to do.
outside.
Go outside, take a really long walk, find a nice, beautiful
grass,
beautiful body of water. Just
green,
stroll around the lake, find a river,
and
really think about the kind of person that you want to be. And if you,
I don't even care if you think, just walk and see what happens.
If you decide that you still want to be the person harassing people in their like private messages, do us all a favor and just throw yourself into that lake or that pond or river. Just do it. Just toss yourself in. And maybe the cold water will help you.
And if you are going to go in those people's DMs, and you are going to do that, when they finally say something back to you, don't come crying to the rest of us about how they hurt your feelings. Because I guarantee you, if we go through and he pulls receipts from all the things that were sent and said to him, some of y'all would lose jobs. Some of y'all would be banned from the internet because we cancel everybody now. Remember, kids? See that? Remember how this works?
Well,
so
that's the goal. That's the goal. Is they always try to get everybody canceled.
It's the stupidest thing. Everybody wants to cancel everybody on social media, but everybody forgets that their words have consequences, and especially if you're saying them to people in private. In private, usually when you're communicating in private, that means you have a personal interaction with them. And in those interactions, all of us can't judge the scenario because that's a personal interaction. So therefore, our input doesn't matter, and we should no longer care. So if you're going to go into somebody's DMs and do that stuff, whatever happens to you after you go in there and start it is not my problem.
Also, generally speaking, these are things that you would not say to a man who has more muscle mass in his left arm than you do in your entire body.
Not saying that
and I don't say that as an insult to anybody, like in particular.
That's what I mean about the consequences for words about things. People forget that we used to have to say this stuff to people's faces if we wanted them to hear us. You couldn't say this people from 5,000 miles away.
And false sense of being able to get away with stuff like that.
As far as the
get away with stuff like that in real life.
And then the media up there does it. So I really understand why the guy is tired of it, because the New York media market sucks.
Tough market right there.
No, I'll be flat blunt. That market sucks to play in. Ask the Yankees players, ask the Rangers players, ask any of the teams that play up there in New York. Even Buffalo. No, there's Buffaloes up there, but that's not like the main New York market. The main New York media market that gets all the coverage and all the attention is the Knicks and the Rangers and the Yankees and Mets and the Giants. That's the teams. And they treat those dudes. It's insane. The media market up there is absolutely brutal and awful to players, at staff, administrators. Like, it's bad. It's a bad market for that.
Yeah,
I will also simply say this just from the team perspective. Andy Reid's not going to cut him. There's not going to be. I don't think there's going to be two things. Pat's going to pull him aside and he's going to go, "Hey, one, that was funny, but don't do it again." Two, Coach Reid is going to say, "Tony, knock it off."
We don't do that around here, son.
It's Coach Reid.
You want to know the real funny part about it all is his response to it. Sorry, guys.
Oh yeah.
I got hacked. My bad.
And that's him acknowledging.
Now that's funny right there. That's
him acknowledging, y'all.
That is a grade A level trolling.
Hello.
Right, I mean, come on. He's the champ, guys. Like,
I do love Kadarius Toney and think he's going to be like the best. The best way for him to really handle this, though, is like I want those bitter Giant fans to turn on the TV and every week. Sunday. Even when they're watching their Giants, I want them to get the cutaway to Red Zone or the highlights.
I was gonna say, Tom, let's be honest, most of them are watching Red Zone if they're watching the Giants, so they're gonna see. Yeah.
They're gonna see.
I just want it to be highlight after highlight after highlight of Kadarius Toney, and that's the best revenge we can get. So there's the playbook for it. And I think that's the message that they'll say internally to him is, hey, go show him. really make him.
I also think things that he said in July in somebody's Instagram or Twitter DMs has exactly negative 5,000% effect on what he's going to do on the football field come this fall.
He can still cut on a dime.
So if we're doing a worry meter about if Kadarius is responding to things on that, I think it broke the scale going back to the left because it just doesn't matter.
Well, let's not downplay the importance that Kadarius had down the stretch in the season. Even in the Super Bowl, that punt return in the second half was huge.
He helped secure and finalize the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
he scored a touchdown on a route on the first time that they ran the route where the guy completely disappeared off a screen because I think he folded his left knee on top of itself when he was trying to cut. It looked like it hurt.
Yeah, listen, he was so sharp.
And then he did the punt return to where Sky Moore gets an easy tap into
corn dogs can't have two of them, can't just have one,
except we did.
The level of how much this stuff doesn't matter is so insane. Exactly,
which is why we're going to be done talking about it and move on to our final
topic
point.
here,
the best part of the night.
Training camp is on the horizon. We are how many days away from training camp?
5. It's like the 18th, isn't it?
Yeah. We are a week out, at least less than a week out. So that's really great. That's
great
news. St. Joe will be popping up there.
No, it won't. Even with training camp, it will not be popping.
No, it won't be popping.
If you've not been to St. Joe, popping is not a word that is in their vocabulary.
I'm sure it's a great little town, but I don't know. Yeah.
I spent way too many weekends in St. Joe, y'all. I love y'all. It's a nice town. Popping is not in the vocabulary.
They might be popping, but. Yeah, training camp. Obviously,
no comment. No comment.
Yeah, we might be having something. Am I right?
Jesus.
This is the part of the show where we try not to get canceled.
Training camp is on the horizon, guys. We can't be talking about it. We can't be dwelling on the past. All right.
So, with St. Joe coming up, obviously Tom and myself are going to try to at least get up there a little bit. It's a little harder for Garrett because it's farther.
The flights for the games.
Yeah. But we're going to try and be around. With that said, besides the part where we're looking forward to being at training camp and hopefully running into some of you folks, what is the part you guys are looking forward to most to start training camp? Actual training camp. I'm not talking about all the contract stuff we just talked about and all that noise. I'm talking about actual training camp. What are you looking at? What's the most thing you're looking forward to most for training camp right now? At least the first part of training camp.
At least football. Yeah, Tom. What do you got?
Yeah, just football. Just getting in the rhythm of things. Yeah. Always good to start. Talking about the rookies and seeing how everybody's looking. Because that's huge. I've been, on our little hiatus, we didn't really get to talk too much about this. This draft class is fascinating to me.
Very fascinating.
Not a lot of guys that I was necessarily really excited about pre-draft, with the exception of Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
But man, in terms of the positional, the positions and the values, pretty excited about those. So
it's been an interesting draft class to go back and look through. I think once because once everybody they get drafted and everybody's like, oh yeah, instant great. When you actually get to go back and look through and peel through and look down and try to find why they took them, because I think for Tom, and I might be speaking for Tom, but I know for me on the draft process, when I'm evaluating guys and looking at guys for this team, I don't necessarily care who they drafted. I want to understand why they drafted the guy. And that part's been interesting for this class.
I'm sure we'll get into this as we get to see them, live and stuff, but I will go on record and say this. Chamari Connor is the dude this year that I just, I feel like
spicy already. I
think he's going to be the guy who's rotating in and makes some big splash plays. I think he's going to be the guy who long term the Chiefs are going to look at Justin Reed and go, bud, we got somebody.
Yeah.
So
they just did it with Juan.
Yeah.
Brett's showing you he's not afraid to walk away from guys.
Mm-hmm. I am excited about that pick because he's one of those. He's in that same mold of L'Jarius Sneed. It's not comparable, but in terms of experience, inside, outside, all over. In basketball,
late round guy, small school.
Positionless players.
Virginia.
Yeah, the Chiefs are Virginia Tech.
So maybe Virginia.
Small school.
ACC.
Yeah. But the Chiefs are like experimenting.
Not a traditional football powerhouse, we'll call it that. How's that?
Not since Mike Vick. But the Chiefs almost are experimenting with this idea of like a positionless like secondary, right? Where Trent McDuffie inside outside. L'Jarius Sneed can play literally all 5 positions for you.
Put Brian Cook in the box outside.
Brian Cook can line up in a variety of places.
Justin Reed he has athleticism for everything.
Yeah, so it's interesting that, especially
your
for
other corner that you didn't even mention, the only guy that really doesn't move around a lot that they used the crap out of last year, Mr. Watson.
Yeah, I mean
John Watson. Yeah, you got Josh Williams.
Played inside outside. The only guy on that defense right now that they haven't used inside and outside and moved around is Watson. He's the only one.
So it's interesting. People forget Spagnuolo, even though he's known for like the blitzing and all that stuff. His origins, his background is, he came into the league as a defensive backs coach. That's his bread and butter, and you see that with this team and some of the fingerprints that he's putting on it.
Yeah. And their defensive line looks like a bunch of 7 dudes that look exactly the same from a physical perspective, and you have no idea where he's going to line them up.
Good luck. Yeah.
Anyone in and out. I mean, that's where really you see the positionless. I think that's kind of becoming a trend around all the NFL. But the defensive line is really becoming a positionless. I mean, you see Chris Jones line up outside and dominate defensive end.
Charles Omenihu. Yeah, I'm excited about the defense.
Y'all have listened to me yell and scream and talk about the amoeba defense, amoeba front defense, NASCAR packages. I've said it 1,000 times on this podcast. That's what he's known for. That's what they built in New York when they knocked Mr. Perfect Brady season out. This is what he does. He's been the guy talking about making the defenses positionless and built like this, and then the league went ahead. And then the league went ahead and built offenses exactly for that.
Like, boom, perfect. Here we go.
That's what they built.
Prepared for this.
Now you've got linebackers that look like safeties, and safeties that look like linebackers, and corners that look like safeties.
We got Drew Tranquill, who's underrated little coverage guy.
We didn't even talk about the additions to the veteran additions.
Yeah.
They got another guy on the back end at the safety position that we haven't said 2 words about that's going to play snaps for this team a lot this year at safety. So.
And who would that be, Kyle?
We'll get into it
Mike
later.
Edwards.
It's Mike Edwards. But
well, we're running out of time.
I forgot about Mike.
The other thing I'll say,
so
because we're focused on training camp.
Yes. And like you said,
the offensive line configuration.
Yeah,
we're going to see really who's going to be
that
where.
might be one of my that might be what I'm looking forward to. I always love watching offensive line in training camp. Obviously, a couple years ago, we had Trey and Creed both emerge as really good dudes. And
I mean, what arrangement? You mean which tackle, where the 2 tackles are starting?
We were talking about how this draft class, like we might have our left tackle of the future in the 3rd round here in Wanye Morris. Who, depending on how Donovan Smith works out at left tackle.
You may have Wanye next year, but he ain't gonna play this year, not unless he has to.
I mean, but hold on though, because we said the same stuff about like Trey and
unless he comes in and we talked a lot about Trey being
especially with Donovan Smith being like 36 or whatever.
Hold on, Donovan Smith is not 36.
34.
He's old.
He's not as old as we thought he was because we did this before. We thought he was way older than he was.
32.
I think he's 30.
He's 30. Okay, I made it overestimated a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's the same. I think he's like within a year of Orlando Brown Jr.
I mean, how old was what's his name, Kyle Long, when
like 34.
Right. So remember when that was a thing?
Yeah.
My point with Trey Smith is Larry was coming back from after not playing a year and was basically the only staple, and Andrew Wiley. And we had a pretty good idea that Andrew Wiley was going to be the backup from the beginning once Trey was deemed healthy. That wasn't really a question. The question here is we know that they're going to play one of the dude they paid a ton of money to at right tackle for the most part.
Yeah.
Jawan
Taylor.
I don't want to call him Josh Taylor, but Jawan Taylor.
Yeah.
Donovan Smith is here to play this year. He's here to bridge a gap. Maybe. Now, if Wanye beats him out clean,
that's the thing, though. What
great.
If he does?
Okay, what if he does? But that's not an arrangement thing. You basically have one position battle you're watching. Okay, that's great.
And I'm excited about it.
I disagree though, because I think
what else are you moving?
We'll see. I think you could see Jawan Taylor get some snaps on the left side.
Why?
Because he may be better at it than
why though? Maybe.
Well,
where Donovan's
is
at.
the upgrade to his slight improvement over Donovan or Wanye worth putting somebody who's not used to playing right tackle and degrading the right tackle play that you're going to get by such an amount, than leaving him at right and being okay with having the left tackle? Anyway.
Okay. So you have 3 tackles, right? One of them is going to be your swing tackle. One of them is going to be your left tackle. One of them is going to be your right tackle. Here's my point. And at the end of the day, as long as they get the best 5 guys in the best 5 spots, I'm fine. I think that there's a world, I'm not saying it's likely, where you have Taylor as your left tackle and maybe Morris gets put in at your right tackle. There's also Lucas Niang on this roster who, again, if he's healthy, the coaching staff like him and they know him and they know what you get there. I mean, you are in a position where you have where you have
5 guys fighting for one spot because Jawan Taylor is playing.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, this is where he's going to play.
Okay.
Yeah. It's something to watch. I just like watching the one-on-ones. Honestly, those are usually great times.
Sure. I think
a lot of.
For me, the training camp look forward is the adjustment to the roster construction with Andy's change on the fullback. What do they do? Because
that is interesting.
We've been doing the same. Andy's been doing pretty much the same thing from a roster building standpoint for like 20-something years now, as far as what they keep on the roster at certain position groups. It varies. It varies very marginally from one guy here extra in a position this year versus one extra guy here the next year. For example, we saw him keep more corners than safeties, I think, last year than the year before, where they had more safeties than corners. And then vice versa. Or they keep an extra wide receiver versus, like, last year they only brought 5 to the main roster, and they had an extra tight end and they had a fullback still. So there was all that. Now with him removing the fullback from the equation, because that's what the NFL has done. There's no more traditional fullback anymore. And no, I don't think Blake Bell's that guy. I think your fullback, halfback guy is Noah Gray, actually, because Blake's an inline blocking tight end and a quarterback, not necessarily a fullback guy. I am ridiculously familiar with Blake's game due to his proximity to where we grew up and where he played football growing up, all that, and his time in Oklahoma. So yeah. But I would, like I said, he might get a couple of snaps at fullback, but I would expect that to be a Noah Gray spot for the most part.
Yeah, that is going to be a very,
because they can do a bunch of unique, crazy crap with Noah out of that position and get some hilariously bad matchups on defensive players because of it.
Also fair.
If you line Noah Gray up as a fullback and then ask some middle linebacker to cover that dude out of the backfield on a route,
have an Anthony Sherman wheel route with him.
Good luck.
Send him on a Sherman wheel route, just left side. Yeah. Good luck, guy.
Yeah. Have fun with that, linebacker.
Yeah. Noah Gray did play fullback, I think, at Duke a little bit as well.
They used him all over the H-back, fullback, wing-back, all that crap.
Duke was definitely an offense that didn't really know what to do with their tight end, so they did everything with him.
Well, he was.
You could have just stopped at didn't know what to do. But
didn't know what to do. Usually.
He caused them problems because he was so multifaceted. They had to figure out how to put him in multiple positions in the field. Like I said,
you play quarterback too.
Their roster construction is the thing. I think it'll be interesting to see how many they keep at wide receiver and how many they keep at running back, because we basically know they're keeping 4 tight ends. Like that's pretty much a wrap. So where's that extra roster spot go? Does it go to a 6th wide receiver like we all are automatically assuming? I think probably, but I'll be curious.
Yeah, there's a lot to be discovered. Obviously, we are 5 days away from camp. We're going to have a lot more to talk about, but we will end off this episode here. Hopefully sneaking in under the hour mark. Be sure to follow us all, of course, at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
We're slacking. Is that 2 episodes under an hour?
Yeah, I think so. I think we might nail it. But thank you all, of course, for tuning in. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube, the Kingdom Says podcast. If you are not watching, why aren't you? You might as well start watching. That's a great way to support us. Discord's coming soon. Be on the lookout for that. We're going to have some more content coming. We might have a Twitter Spaces going if Chris Jones signs 2 hours after the episode releases tomorrow, which is very
More
likely.
than likely.
So there's that. But other than that, have a great weekend. We will see you guys next week once camp has started with a whole lot more to talk about. So thank you all once again for watching and listening, and we will see you guys in the next one.